Hello, and welcome to the Scott Mize Show, a podcast focused on health, diet, bodybuilding, and philosophy. I interview experts, doctors, coaches, and N=1 case studies to answer your questions about improving health, achieving your best physique, and making sustainable progress. We'll cover topics from carnivore and ketogenic diets, to bodybuilding, to life philosophy, and everything in between. Enjoy the show. This episode is brought to you by M.Ed Electrolytes. This month, we're switching it up with an exclusive offer that's only for VIP LMNT partners, including Carnivore Cast listeners. You can now receive this free sample pack along with any regular purchase when you use my custom link, which is provided in the show notes or my Instagram link in bio. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorecast, all one word. And as I said, I'll include the link in the show notes. M.Ed Electrolytes are convenient, evidence-based, and delicious, and get yours today to help support the show. Thank you. This is a quick disclaimer before we start the show. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said here should be taken as medical advice, and please consult with your physician before making any changes to your diet, exercise regime, or medications. Thank you, and on to the show. Suzanne Alexander is returning to the podcast for part 3, where we're going to talk about her recent expedition to Africa to visit indigenous people. Check out episodes 1 and 2, where we go through her first expedition to 7 of the Pacific Islands. She's the co-author and editor of the newly released book, The Ancestral Diet Revolution, along with renowned physician, author, nutrition researcher, and speaker, Dr. Knobbe, M.D., who was recently on the show as well. Welcome back, Suzanne.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much for the third time. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate this so much. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, you're always welcome. And I always learn so much. Your expeditions are groundbreaking and phenomenal. And I'm really excited to hear about your trip to Africa.
Oh, thank you. It was truly the most unbelievable experience of my life. Again, life altering. They've become my family, and it's just the knowledge that I gained from their wisdom, from living with them. This was so different than the Pacific Islands because it was very short with each of the tribes. It wasn't living right with them. We would spend the day with them, but we weren't living with them in all their realm. Their hardships. And even the Pacific Island was pleasant compared to what you experience in Africa. And so we'll kind of dive in, and I'll give you the stories as we go along and all the information. Cool. Yeah. Now I'm just gonna see let's see. Okay, there we go. All right. So this is these are the tribes I was with. There was 5 branches, but 7 in all, because the Datoga and the Maasai, we did 2 different tribes. And so there was 5 tribes, but 7 in all. 2 were of the same clan, similar kind of clans. So we'll start with the Hadzabe, and this is the tribe down here. Then we went to the Datoga. We did 2 Datogas, and then we did the Iraq. Then we did the Maasai, and then we did the Sanjo Batemi. And so we'll start out with the Hadzabe. Now the Hadzabe, hold on, why isn't this working here? Yeah, here's the map of Tanzania. They're in East Africa, right off of Kenya. So here's Kenya up here. Can you see my cursor up there, Scott? Can you see that kind of moving around? And so over here in this region, we start with Hadzabe, and they are the last of the hunter and gatherers. And there's only, Scott, this is this awful thing, is there's only 800 of them left. They're becoming extinct. Wow. And this is my fear with all the tribes. I have a quest to help them and to protect them. The government is taking away all their land because of tourism, and then big agriculture is called coming in, and they are down to hardly anything. And as a matter of fact, within the next few days, they're saying over 27,000 Maasai are going to be, their land is going to be gone. Last year at the same time, thousands and thousands and thousands were moved. Many were killed, brutally beaten, and some are still missing. It's savagery what's happening to them. And with the Hadzabe, the same thing. We'll talk as we go along. You'll see that you can see how close now the Datoga and the Iraq tribes are all right here, all within the same. This used to be the Hadzabe hunting grounds. And now these are all pastoralists. All these other tribes I was with, they were all pastoralists. Some are agro-pastoralists, but most are pastoralists, which means that they raise livestock, and that's their food source is the livestock. They aren't hunting wild animals like the Hadzabe. The Hadzabe are, when I say hunters and gatherers, that's how they live. The men hunt, the women gather and gather if there's fruit or the plants, the tubers and things like that, which you'll see as we move on. And the sad thing is that you can see that where the Datoga and Iraq now have their cattle and their sheep and their goats and their donkeys all coming in to graze is exactly where the Hadzabe hunt. And so they've all got their bells on, you can hear the ding, 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 ding. And then you get the donkeys all, and it's scaring away a lot of the animals. And so there's really not a lot for them to hunt. And we, I experienced that when I was with them. There was nothing. We could see a couple of tracks of hyenas and maybe, an antelope or something, but they weren't there. And so they just caught a small little bird, which we'll talk about as we move on. It's just heart-wrenching. So this is my team that I'd organized before I arrived. And over here, this is Meneno. He was the chef because I have extreme digestive problems and a lot of food allergies. Mateo, who is my lead, he is these guys are both Maasai, and so this is Mateo and this is Tembo, and they speak their Ma language, which is Maasai. They speak Swahili. Now, all of the people in Tanzania, which is brilliant, because there's over 120 tribes, hundreds and hundreds of different languages that are spoken, but they came up with speaking they all have to learn Swahili so they can at least communicate, which was really helpful because we were in different tribes that all speak different languages, but most of them could speak Swahili. And so therefore, Tembo and Mateo and Meneno, they were able to converse with them in Swahili. And so, but because they knew that I had digestive problems, we put Meneno on just in case I could not handle the food that I was going to be eating, which did come in handy quite often. So again, there's Meneno was my chef. Then there's, of course, myself, Mateo. He is the lead guide. He's also my translator, and he's like my adopted son, as is Tembo. He was our driver. And driving there, oh my golly, the roads were just a couple of times I thought it hurt my neck because we were just all over the place. The roads are so bumpy. It's, it was wild, but it was amazing again. And this, of course, was our mighty Land Cruiser that we spent a lot of time in getting from tribe to tribe. They're very far apart from each other. So here we are. Now, because we're living right with the tribes, I had my tent. I brought a tent and a sleeping bag with me. And so this is where the boys would sleep when we were with the Hadzabe. So we had 7 different campgrounds. And so this was one of our campgrounds with the Hadzabe. And it was amazing because here you can see a lot of the Hadzabe. Oh, you can see the Hadzabe here. They came in, and I got videos up on my social media where you could see them actually digging and getting rid of stumps. So that we're like the first people to come and live there with them. So they're very, very, they're really out in the bush. And this is not a touristy place. Many of the tribes that people go to, they're tourist traps, and they're just, a lot of the tribes aren't really living that way. It's just for the day for people to come and see. These are really living the life. And so they cleared an area so we could put our tents in, and it was just remarkable. Just remarkable. This was my toilet and my shower every day, and all the different. So people, it's roughing it. We have these luxuries. I've had people say, "How can you say that it's a rough life?" Well, if you haven't lived this without your electricity and your toilets and all the things and your water, it is roughing it. And you're out where there's wild animals. You don't know from one moment to the next if a cobra, if a python. You don't know if there's insects are poisonous. You don't know what you're going to come up against. A leopard, hyenas, and we did have an encounter with some situations, which we'll talk about as we go along. So you would go out, and you don't know, hopefully no one else from the tribe is also out there as well. You just find a bush to go behind. And so I would always carry my toilet paper with me. They use leaves. And the next time I go, which will be soon, I'm going to try the leaves. We just didn't know what my reaction would be. And I didn't know if I wanted to deal with anything in that region of my body with everything else I was dealing with. And then my Meneno, my chef, every morning he would get up early and he would boil some water for all of us. And he would pour it into this little pan, and I would go out and, I'm not going to take my clothes off, but I would just kind of wash my face and wash my arms and things like that with just water. That's all I had. And that was bathing. And, your hair, I didn't wash my hair. They shave their heads. Most of them shave their heads, so they don't really worry about their hair. And so, it is it's roughing it. And it was very scary for me, again, because you're out alone and you don't know what you're going to see and what you can encounter. It was, especially at nighttime, very scary.
Carnivore and ketogenic diets can be an excellent way to combat diseases we commonly associate with aging and degeneration in the modern world. But if you're like me, you want to do everything possible to stay in your prime physically and mentally as long as you can, especially with me thinking about starting a family. I really value the most research-backed ingredients and science for bettering the aging process. Today's sponsor is Neurohacker, which packs 7 of the most science-backed senolytic ingredients into one formula called Qualia Senolytic. And you can take it just 2 days a month for fast and noticeable benefits and for a much better aging process. I've been taking Qualia Senolytic for the last month, and I've already noticed a big improvement in my physical and mental energy for my family and friends, and my productivity has improved. I feel invigorated, I feel enthusiastic, and ready to get things done. It's also backed by a 100-day money-back guarantee, so that means you can try it for almost 3 full months, and if you don't like it, there's no risk. You can decide for yourself. If you're in your late 20s or older, adding Qualia Senolytic to your diet can play a crucial role in combating negative aging symptoms. Go to neurohacker.com/Scott for up to 50% off Qualia Senolytic. And as a listener of the show, you can use code SCOTT at checkout for an extra 15% off your first purchase. Again, it's risk-free. Just go to neurohacker.com/Scott to try Qualia Senolytic with code SCOTT and start aging on your own terms. Thanks, and back to the show.
So this is the Hadzabe village, and you can see that they live in huts. But interestingly, if you look carefully down here, you can see little like plastic bags that they found out, people are polluting, and they'll stuff them in little spots. You can see that they found some little plastic pieces over here to help so that it kind of helps protect them from the elements. So they're kind of finding things in the environment. It was something. It was just really, really something. And they sleep on the ground. They just sleep on the dirt. They don't have a bed. They might have a little blanket that they cover up with. And but it was so precious because the boys, this is Pele, we were very close to them. They would sleep right out on the ground by our area just to keep us safe. It was just so precious. It was just it's very emotional for me because I just love them all so much. And you could see here that these are the 3 Hadzabe we went hunting with that day. And they were just amazing. And so what they found, and you could see here that they only use bows and arrows. They don't use guns or anything. It's just bow and arrow, and they make them themselves. As a matter of fact, I have an arrow here, but I'll talk about that when I get to the tribe I've got that from. But so they have dogs everywhere. The dogs help them. The dogs help to kind of protect them. But they're wonderful, part of the tribe. And so here you've got Pele, and he finally got a bird. And it was just, we walked probably 12 to 15 miles that day, walking and running. And it was a red-billed hornbill. I'll go back. A red-billed hornbill that they got. And of course, it was so small, it was going to do nothing for the tribe. But because we hadn't had anything to eat, they cooked it up. And I have a video out. Of course, you can watch all of this. There's videos on everything I'm doing. And so you can see over here that they're cooking it. And right here, he's putting the head in his mouth, and he's just crushing it with his mouth. It was alive. And that's how they kind of put it out of its misery. I was like, oh, because that was the first time I'd experienced seeing an animal killed like that. And to have the head crushed like that, I was like, oh, but I was good. It was not good. But this is very living ancestrally. Here, and of course, everyone hears about honey, that they eat honey every day. They do not eat honey every day. It's not available every day. And there's videos out on this. You can see this. They found 2 different nests. One was on the ground, and one was way up high. If you could just see how tall and massive this is a baobab tree. And they put you can see here, he's stepping on, they actually put pegs into the tree. They make them right there. You can see them carving them, and they pound them into the tree, and that's how they climb up the tree. It was brilliant. And I'm a tree climber.
Wow.
I was like, great. It's like rock wall climbing, it's really cool. And here you can see one of the boys, he's making the pegs with their knives. The knives, all their tools and their axes were gorgeous. Oh, I wanted to bring one home. It was absolutely gorgeous. They're made by the Datoga tribe that we went to, one of the tribes we were with, and they're blacksmiths. They're not pastoralists. This tribe, the Toga, were the blacksmiths, and they make they all kind of barter each other. So the Hadzabe will bring them honey in exchange for having maybe the arrowheads and so forth that are being made, or the axe heads that are being made, and then they make the bases for them. And so it's just brilliant how they all work together. Definitely cooperative working. And so in one of the nests that was on the ground,
sorry, how often do they hunt? Is it daily or
daily, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day?
wow?
They'll go out late at night. I'm thinking, I go, boys, you're going to go out late at night. What are you going to find? And they said, sometimes this is the only time we can find anything.
Wow.
And the night vision, Scott, I'm telling you, I mean, I couldn't see. I just could not see. And I always had my phone flashlight on, they can totally see everything. All of the tribes. I mean, my Maasai boys I was with the whole time, they're just walking around and I'm like tripping over rocks and things, and they can see. It's amazing. Again, they're so pristine in their health. And it's so, and you start to realize this is how we're supposed to be. We are so damaged by our lights that we have. And now we've got our computers, and our cell phones are just damaging us. Now our eyes is taking a toll. And but so you can see down here, this first picture is the honey beehive that was on the ground, and it was a brand new one, and there was nothing in it. It was absolutely empty because what the flowers were not they're not out. It's not the season, and so the bees have nothing to go and get. There's no pollen. They don't have what they need to produce the honey. So everything was empty. Way up high on the baobab tree. And there was bees everywhere. We thought for sure they'd find things because there were so many bees. This was an old one, and there was nothing in it. Absolutely nothing. And so again, they came up empty, and it was just breaking my heart because here they only got a bird, and then there was no honey for them. The baobab trees are empty. And so anyone who thinks that they've got baobab all year long, no, they don't. It's not what we've been told. And that's why, as a researcher, I finally started saying, I'm going to take this into my own hands. That what I'm reading isn't coming out to be what it truly is. So what we're told is very biased. It's based on what someone wants you to know. And so as I'm now taking it on, I pay for my own expeditions. I have no one to tell me what I have to say. I tell you the truth. And so I have live Instagrams. You hear from the tribes exactly what it is. My followers can ask questions, and this is what we're finding. It's not what it is. There's not honey every day. No, they don't. There's not fruit every day because it's not out there every day. It's not. It's very seasonal eating. And there's not animals every day. It is very slim pickings, especially now that the government is coming in and removing their land and all their opportunities to hunt. You can't do the big game anymore. This is illegal. Everything's illegal. I think that the tribes should have a right to still have permission to hunt what they have for thousands of years, but it's being taken away. So we're going to be working on helping to get their rights back. And I hope everyone will join my mission on that. Over here, this is how they get their water. And they don't care what the source is. It could be a mud puddle. It could be anything. You can see here, it was just like a little pond, very murky. This is kind of like a little spring type thing, but everything's very muddy, very dirty. I'm sure probably full of every kind of microbe you can imagine. But this is what I believe is why they have such a diverse gut microbiome. There's so much research talking about, it's all about, the baobab plant, the trees are eating so much fiber. I'm telling you right now, I didn't see them eating that much fiber that day. The days that we lived there, even this day that we were out, they weren't eating hardly anything. He did, Pele found one little root tuber, and they ate it, but it was very small, and they split it between everyone. And it wasn't a lot. It was not a lot of food that they were eating. It was not a lot. And I'll talk about the women, what they found. So it's not what we're thinking. It's not, they're saying it's just plants, meat. It was slim pickings. It really was. And maybe that's a reason why they stay so thin, probably. But again, they're drinking from anything they can find. And they will use their tubers as well. And we'll talk about that soon. This is the berry that they found. This is called the Xenia americana, the wild plum. And so this is what they're eating. I found it to be very bitter, very sour, but juicy. You peel the skin off of the outside. It kind of looked like, I thought, oh, it's like a little cherry tomato. But this is Mateo is over here picking one, and you've got one of the Hadzabi over here picking, and they love them. They said, and Mateo here he's a Maasai, and they say they don't eat fruit. Yes, they do. It's seasonal. He said, "Oh my goodness, this is one of our favorites." And it's only out for 2 months of the year. And he was just gobbling them up and everything. And there's a little pit on the inside. And he was just crushing it with his teeth and swallowing it. I was like, because I don't do seeds and nuts and things like that.
Wow.
But I peeled it and I ate it. I was like, oh, it was really sour, very bitter. And I thought it wouldn't be something I would gravitate towards. But there's not a lot of sweet fruit there. There just isn't. And even the baobab fruit is not sweet. It's very mild. They don't have. This is Africa. And so in their region where they're living, there is not a lot of fruit. There is not a lot of edible plants. And that's why they don't eat them, because they're not there. Of course, Maasai, I'll talk about what they eat in terms of plant wise, and it's really not a lot. But so again, this is what their fruit is. And it's not like we think of sweet, sweet, sweet. It is very bitter, very sour. But this is what they know. They don't really know sweet because it's not there.
Yeah.
It was so this again, this is it was interesting because it's never been in their diet. And this is something and this has never been talked about because no one's ever seen this, because when they're saying that they're researching them, they're not living with them. So while we're coming back from the hunt, and we're probably on our 8th or 9th mile at this point, they stop at this hut. And this is one of the Datogas, who also their cattle. You can see right here, Scott, look at this. This is the hunting ground. This is where they hunt. But you've got all these cattle with all their bells on and all the donkey making all their sounds. It's scaring any kind of animal away. And so you've got the Datogas, you've got the Iraq tribes, all out there walking around. They're shepherds and so forth. There's not going to be a lot of wild animals left. So a lot of times they'll be finding mice and rats and things like that. This is what they're eating. It's in baboon, of course, that was one of their favorite that they talked about. But even those, they've hunted those out right now. And so there's just not a lot left. So we stop at this Iraq hut on the way. I'm thinking, well, what are we doing? What are we doing? And they bring them milk. They bring them goat milk. And so you can see this is happiness. And it was so funny because even the tribes kept saying, oh my gosh, God is so with you. Because we were supposed to go to a different Datoga tribe, an Iraq tribe to stay with. That was really far away. But this family we bonded with, and we said, could we come and stay with you guys? We really bonded and we loved how they lived. And they were like, sure, come and stay with us. So instead of going with the place, because these guys were really way out in the bush. And I would say, oh my golly. And I adored them. So we'll talk about them soon. But this is the happiness. She's 13 years old, working her tail off, doing all her chores and just serving us. And of course, was showing the ugali that they eat, which we'll talk about. But now the Hadzabi are actually incorporating raw milk into their diet. And they've never had that before. So this is something new that's being incorporated because now these tribes are all coming in to their region. And it was fascinating to see. It was very fascinating to see.
Do they use anything, Suzanne, to store either food or water?
Well, the Hadzabi don't store anything. The only thing that they may store would be the baobab. Because those, they can store them a little bit. They can, for a while, they will store. But right now, when I was talking with the chief, I said, do you have baobab left? And he said, no. He said, we've depleted it. He said, the only way we would get the baobab would be is if we were to hike many, many, many miles. And there may be some still left on the trees, but he said, but we don't. He says, we just go without. And so again, you can see they're not eating it all the time.
No. And
Now,
do you know how has did you ask how the goat milk has affected their health?
yeah, and they said that they enjoy it. They said it's helping. I think it really is helping them because it's giving them another. But the thing is that the women, it's only the people who are out, the hunters, that are getting it. If the women, when they go to get water, if they're able to make friends with the other tribes, I'm sure that while they're out getting water, I would think that the women would be able to then start acquiring their milk as well.
Okay.
But it was just fascinating to see. And I want to go back. I really want to go back and do more studying with them because now that I've seen it, and been there. There's so much more I want to do. So I will be going back to do more research and studying with him, because it's what I'm learning is unbelievable, unbelievable for our health. So my heart was wrenching because they had no food. There was going to be nothing except they were going to have some tubers, and for that whole day, for the entire tribe. And so I looked at my crew and I just said, guys, we've got to go find it. I got to find a lamb. I want to bring them a lamb for dinner tonight. And so a lot of tribes, they do not want to separate with their animals. And so we drove from tribe to tribe, and finally we found a Datoga Iraq family. They were willing to sell me one. And so you can see here, look at them. It was it was the most adorable thing. I thought I would never thought in my wildest dreams that I would be sitting in a Land Cruiser right behind my seat with 3 Hadzabe tribe members. I go, smile. And of course, they weren't used to someone saying smile. They finally learned what smile meant, because they always knew I kept saying smile, because I love their teeth.
Yeah.
Look how beautiful their teeth are. And they were grinning from ear to ear. So I took them first out to lunch. And I wish so badly I had recorded it and taken pictures, but I didn't, because I was so overwhelmed watching them eating. So whenever you go to the restaurants there, it's just meat hanging, and they'll cook you whatever you want, and then they serve it on a big platter. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like we have. So I just ordered a bunch of meat, you know what I mean? And they just come out and it's
Yeah.
all sitting on, and they were just, oh my goodness, they couldn't get enough. They couldn't get enough. But interesting, here's the sad part though. They are drinking heavily.
Mm.
Alcohol, cigarettes are hugely smoked there. But the great thing between this tribe, at least this was positive, and the tribes in the Pacific Islands that we were with, the Pacific Islands were smoking our kind of cigarettes. They are laden with chemicals. The tribes grow their own tobacco, so at least
Okay.
it's plant based. There's no chemicals in it, and they were rolling. They would just find pieces of paper out in garbage and stuff, and they were using that to roll their cigarettes.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, but they're also drinking alcohol heavily and marijuana. They're smoking heavily. And
I was going to ask. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
You mentioned buying the lamb. What use do they have for money, for currency?
So what they do is they will and they use money to buy their alcohol.
Right.
And but they're growing their own marijuana and things like that. But
Okay.
in terms of their alcohol, they will walk 10 miles to go into that's the close. Most of them are about 10 to 15 miles away from some kind of a little shop, and it's usually like these little shacks. Okay, I'll show you it. I showed you that we had in the Pacific Islands, same thing that they have here. They're popping up because they want to attract the native tribes, and
Yep.
which is making them sick. It's infiltrating. It is infiltrating. Soils, everything is infiltrating. So, and any person comes by, any tourist comes by, they're going to bring them things, and they're bringing them the wrong things. So when I took these guys out for lunch, the first thing they said, would you buy us some, something to drink? They wanted either soda or alcohol. I said, sorry. I said, I'm here to keep you healthy. I was trying to teach them about not taking in this processed food. And they were really understanding that. And you can see that in some of my live Instagrams. We were talking heavily about this, and they don't want to. And they've got tribe members who have left to go to live, like we do. And they came back very quickly because they realized their health was falling apart, and they didn't like it. They didn't like being a part of our society, and they did return. And some of them were in our interviews, and you could see they were very knowledgeable, very knowledgeable. And so anyway, they had their lunch, and then we went to pick, and we finally found the sheep. And so you can see the video of this whole thing. And then Mateo, we went back, and Mateo wanted to show them how a Maasai slaughters compared to how they were slaughtering. And there's a huge series of videos showing, if you wanted to be able to stomach it, because it was my first time. I had a hard time at first. I was like, oh, you could hear me on the video saying, oh my golly. And, but then after a while, it just became part of me, under the realization of, oh my goodness, my heart had to kind of separate from this, because this is their livelihood. This is how they live. It keeps them alive. And it was going to keep me alive, because this is our food source. And you totally become, it's okay. It's the cycle of life. It's a cycle of life. It was something.
Yeah.
It was something. Here we are again. It was the lighting, of course, there's no lighting. So this is just our flashlights. All, we all had everything lit up. And so after we got done, Mateo, it was late into the evening by this point, Mateo was showing them how they cook them, because the Hadzabe lay them right onto the fire. And so Matteo is trying to show them, you put them on, skewer them onto sticks and keep them a little farther away so it's slow cooking, and then it's not so, burned and so forth. So they were fascinated. So over here, you've got some ribs here. There's a leg, and this was amazing liver. Oh my golly, the taste was amazing. However, for everyone out there who likes to have aged meat, their meat is not aged. It is so fresh, and it is very tough, extremely tough. And I was gnawing and gnawing and just trying so hard to get through this meat. And their jaws, I literally, you can see there's a video of me looking right in their mouth while they're chewing. And of course, Paley was dying laughing because I'm right in there going, wait, trying to see. They're chewing the bones, they're breaking, they're crushing this stuff down. Their jaws are powerhouses. And I was like, I'm a wimp. Because they couldn't believe how long it was taking me to get through all the pieces of meat. I could not believe their jaws. Scott, it was remarkable. And then we wonder why, we have such crowded teeth. Their jaws, there was not anyone there that needed braces. Their teeth were immaculate, gorgeous. I mean, it was just, and of course, that's because of how they're eating. We need to get back to, and so any of my meat, I don't purchase aged meat. Also, aged meat is very high in histamine, which causes a lot of poor reactions to a lot of us. I never was a histamine person. And all of a sudden, when I became carnivore, then I started having histamine issues because I was buying all this aged meat. A lot of also the liver, the organs are very high in histamine as well. So it's going to change how we're going to operate. But they don't have aged meat. And that's, I think, why they don't have histamine issues. None. Not any of them. They didn't understand what I was talking about. So you can see here, the women eat by themselves, and the men, they're very separate lives, very separate lives. This is a monogamous group. Most of the other groups are, polygamy is, that's what they believe. And we'll talk about that as we move on. But they're very monogamous, and they only have one wife, one family. And so the men, here they now are absolutely now using ugali. This is to suffice because they don't have enough food. And they have told me, all the tribes said the same thing. Since their land is being taken away, animals are dying, they are now incorporating ugali, and their health is now, they're seeing, just because of the ugali, that is affecting them, is affecting their health. They're not as pristine as they were. So you can see here, they're taking a lot of the fats and the soups and things that we had made, that the Maasai way, and they're using it to dip their ugali in, and they were loving it. They were just, wow, this is so new. This is the women down here. You can see them with their children, and they're sitting around and they're all eating, and they were so appreciative of having the lamb that night, because otherwise they wouldn't have had anything. So it's just beautiful. Here we are with the women. Now the Hadzabe women are more than gatherers, and people don't talk about this. I'll show you in a minute, but this day we went with them, and they were collecting tubers. Okay. And then they also do some greens, but they always cook them. They do not eat them raw. They always cook them. They boil them. And then over here, this is the chief's wife. And I have a video that will be coming out soon with her showing how they bake them very quickly in the fire in about 5 minutes. And then I was eating, I've always wondered what the tubers would taste like. And they chew on it. They got chew, and they're very tough. But boy, it was quite delicious. And you can taste the minerals. The minerals were loaded, powerhouses of minerals. And then they spit it out. They're just really, they're saying they're just getting the water out of it, but they're getting minerals. It was just so profound how many minerals were in the tubers. And so that's how they eat those. There are some that they will cook very much like a sweet potato, and they'll eat those, they'll ingest those. But they told me this is their favorite. This one right here that they were eating is the one that they don't swallow the fibers. They just chew on it and they spit it out. So again, they're not getting a lot of, everyone talks about how much fiber they're getting. They're spitting out a lot of this. Yeah.
And so where can people find the videos, Suzanne? I'll have a link as well.
Yeah, and you'll see that as we go along. I'll have a couple of the slides. Best place to go is on Instagram, because that's where I do all my Instagram live. And so it's Suzanne.Alexander.104. Okay. I also do Facebook and Twitter, but Instagram is my go-to. And so, yeah, and I'm going to continue, even though I'm home now, I'm going to continue to do live Instagrams with my people and with tribes all over the world. I'm making connections with tribes. I'll be doing the Inuits and people in Japan and all over the world. But I do have a huge bond with these guys. So especially the Maasai. So people can ask questions and tune in, and we'll have a connection always. So here we are. Look at this. The women, they catch mice. So they said they'll catch up to 15 mice a day, and they will eat the mice. So this is another piece
Wow.
to another piece that people don't talk about. I thought
How do they catch them?
they just call around, and I couldn't believe how fast they could get them. They'll see them. I'm like, I didn't even see them. They're so
Wow.
quick. It's just remarkable. And she just grabbed it really quick. Wow, and so they'll get up to 15. But this is the only one that they caught that day. And people will always say, where do they get their clothes from? Why do they're wearing clothes, not just tribal? The Catholic charities, a lot of the charities will come and bring them clothing and just give them clothes to wear. And that's across the board in a lot of the tribes. So it's a beautiful thing. It is. And a lot of them, the Hadzabe is not. They are not Christians, but many of them, about 90% of the tribes now have become Christians. Some are Muslim, but most of them have become Christians. But the Hadzabe, no, they don't. They just kind of there maybe is they aren't really sure. We talked about that on some of my live Instagrams. What do they believe? And they're asking, what do you believe? What do you believe after death? Do you believe something happens? They don't believe anything. They think that's the end. That's the end. It's fascinating to study this. And this is the shack. This is what we've been talking about. So this was when we were going to get the lamb. I kept my eyes open. Do they have the shacks? And there it was. And so we went over, and they're very leery, the people who are working in there. And I was just, do you have any seed oil? I'm really in need of some seed oil, And they said, no, we're all out. All we have is this big, huge jug, and they couldn't lift it up. So I handed my phone, and I said, could you take a picture of what you have? Because he said he couldn't lift it. So he took a picture, and this is what it was. I'm pretty sure it's soybean. Or it's either soybean or it would be sunflower, because the sunflower oil was the main oil that I found there was sunflower oil, extremely high in linoleic acid. And so I'm pretty sure that's what that barrel was. And they had all different kinds of things and I could see, because you can't go in. You can only stand at this window like here. It's the same thing in all the different countries I've gone to be with the tribes. It's the same thing. You can't go in. You tell them what you want. So it'd be cigarettes, the oils, the candy, the chips, things like that. But they will also have diapers. They will also have feminine hygiene products and things like that. But it's where they go to get these kinds of the toxic foods are coming into their lives. And it's so heart-wrenching. When we were on our way to after leaving the Hadzabe, and we were stopping at other places, I wanted to see other grocery stores. And so this was, if you look here over on this side, a little small, tiny little place, but it had a little small little wall of seed oils, and the most of the one that it was selling was, again, sunflower oil. I've always been checking the Pringles cans in all the places I've ever gone to see what I'm finding. And it's so interesting, Scott. Every place, whatever the prime oil that the people like to buy, or that they're served by the community, whoever's deciding what the oils are going to be sold, that's what's in the Pringles. So in the Pacific Islands, their oil was palm oil, and that's what was in their Pringles. But in this area, because sunflower seed oil is the big, huge thing, look what it is. It's sunflower is the first oil on the can. So it's interesting that Pringles can make custom batches for each of the areas of what the oil of choice is. It's remarkable to see this. It's always, and this is what I'm
That's
finding in
very
the
interesting.
process. Yeah. Then we went to another store, and I was trying to videotape, and a police officer came right over and said, put his hand in front of my phone and said, no, you can't do that. So this is a little bit of piece that I took the screenshot off of my short little video before he stopped me. Total big, huge wall, and most of it was sunflower oil. Almost the entire wall, sunflower oil. And that's what these people are getting. But again, the tribes aren't in this region, so thank goodness they aren't. But I did notice that as we would move on, any of the people who have moved to these villages, they call them cities, but they're little villages that have this kind of food, they have blown up. They are enormous. They're just overweight. Obesity is just, and we'll talk about that as we go on. This is our next tribe we went to. This is the Datoga. We did two. The first tribe they were the blacksmiths. They are not pastoralists. The second tribe were pastoralists. So this tribe was a little different. They mostly are almost like vegans. And what I found here is this is how they live. Again, they're very flat huts. You could see that the difference between the Hadzabe, they're kind of domed shape. And the Hadzabi are just sticks and grass. There's no mud in it, so it's very open. That's why you could see they're sticking bags and stuff. These guys will use mud and cow dung and things like that to almost like be like a plaster in between the sticks that makes their home. And of course, the top is just the grass that they find, and the floors are all dirt. And they sleep on most of these guys, like the Hadzabi, sleep on the ground. These guys, they'll have like out of sticks, they'll make a little a raised area, and then they put either cowhide or something on top, but it's very hard. If you go on again onto my social media, you can see in some of the videos I'm touching it. You can see how hard it is. It is not soft. They don't have pillows. They don't have mattresses. They might have a little blanket that they cover with. It's very hard. And I will say I've been doing that with myself. I stopped using a pillow over 10 years ago. And I would always wake up with and I have scoliosis. I used to wake up with the worst, neck pain and back pain. And once I took my pillow away, because I want to be so ancestral years ago, I wake up, and they said the same thing. They would never use a pillow. They said they would thought that was weird, So people think about removing your pillow. It'll take a while to kind of get gradually. It took me about a week to get rid of my pillow when I did this 10 years ago. And it was profound, big difference. We don't need
How
a
do you
pillow.
sleep on your side?
I'm mostly a back sleeper, but when I do, I don't know. It's very simple. It's very just, I think I just kind of lay up onto my arm. I think I just lay
I
up
feel
onto
like
my
that would hurt my neck a lot.
Yeah, I just lay up onto my arm, and I think that that's about what it is. Yeah, it's my arm because I'm mostly a back sleeper. And again, it's a vanity thing because
Yeah.
when you sleep on your side, it can cause your skin to cause wrinkles and so forth.
Right.
But I also sleep with silk sheets because it also prevents wrinkles and it also doesn't break your hair. So that's another story. But here they are, the two young boys that were living here with their grandfather and the other women and so forth. They learned blacksmithing from their 102-year-old grandfather. And a lot of 100-year-olds, we came across a lot of 100-year-olds. And so anyone who says the tribes do not live long, again, in our book, we wrote about this. It's because they have taken total misinformation. They've taken the deaths of the births when babies are born or in early childhood because of either diseases or, getting bit by an animal, the infection. They take those deaths and they average them out and so then it makes them come out with like a 42-year-old death rate. This is what they're dying at. It's not a lot of 70s, 80s, 90s, 100-year-olds. That's in all the tribes. It was profound to talk with the wisdom, Scott. It was just unbelievable. So they go around again and they'll find scraps. They'll find old nails, padlocks and things like this when they go into the villages, and they'll just bring them home. So they're kind of cleaning the environment, and then they'll melt them down. You can see over here he's using bellows. The bellows are made from the skin of either goats, the sheep, or the cows, and then they make the fire so hot. I've got videos also on that as well. And here that he's making the arrowhead for the Hadzabi to use, and it was just brilliant. So here's the nail. They take a nail, they melt it down, and this is what you get afterwards. I bought this one right here, so I've got this one here with me at home. And boy, you touch those things, and those go right into your finger. And this is, again, they're all working together. Everyone's working together. It's so neat. You can see, I asked him what happened here on his finger, and he said, that when he was pounding, it went into his thumb and took the nail off. Now here they are. So in talking with them, I asked them what they consume every day, what kind of their diet would be, and I thought for sure they would have meat and so forth. These people chose not to. They said that because they're so busy working as blacksmiths, they don't have time to take care of livestock, and so they've sent them away. So they're only eating every day ugali, which is maize flour and water. It's the same thing that now the Hadzabi have added. But they're also eating what's called makande, which is kidney beans and maize or corn, whole corn, not the flour. They boil it together and they're living on, that's what they're eating. So mostly they're vegans. They said sometimes they did have a goat there. They might have a little bit of milk, but nothing compared to what you're going to see. So very little bit of dairy now, but mostly plant-based. You'll notice their teeth. He's got some staining going on here. It wasn't as pristine looking as what I saw with the rest of the tribes who are not eating as many plants and so forth. Even though this is their grandfather, he's 102 years old. I've got a video that's going to be coming out soon with him talking. he said, his pristine diet would be, he used to live like the Maasai, the blood, the milk, and the meat. And he said that's the pristine diet. And that's what he would choose to do. His teeth were not as beautiful as what you would see with the Maasai. I spoke with another over 100-year-old Maasai, and he was just spectacular. So
Mm,
this man, you can see that I think the plants are taking a toll.
mm,
He was sharp. He was very sharp. He was able to get down on the ground and move around. But when you compare how he looks compared to the Maasai, who are more animal based, now big difference, big difference.
right. Interesting.
Yeah, very amazing. But again, still 102. It was remarkable. He was not, in a wheelchair. He was not, no Alzheimer's, nothing like this. Very, very able to move about, very able to move about. So now we're getting ready to go to our next location, which will be in the next Datoga. So here we go. And of course, here we are saying goodbye. This is part of the clan that is there. So here we are on the next Datoga, and this is our campground here. They would always help us to clear the area. And this group had never really had exposure to a white person. And so when I entered the scene, you could see they were very leery of me. Not sure. Gin, who was the man, kind of like, he was probably in his 30s, and he was kind of like their spokesperson. And he was very leery of me at first. And I asked him, would you mind if I, took some pictures and things? And he said, no, you cannot. And at first I thought, oh no, this is gonna be kind of a bummer, because I wanted to be able to share things, but I just left it in God's hand. And this is over here, just quickly before I go into my story, this is their shepherd over here. And this is look at the landscape. It's so beautiful. I mean, still that kind of a desert safari look, but it was just so beautiful. And the smell there was just so natural, and, no pesticides. It was just beautiful, beautiful. This region, I was so happy to see they didn't have the power lines. A lot of the regions where the tribes are, you'll see power lines going right through. Here, they don't even use electricity, but they've got these big power lines going through. And I'm like, oh, great, EMFs coming off of these things. This is really healthy for them too. But it was just so beautiful. Here we are. So I'll talk in a minute. So this is Gin right here, and Gish, and this is some of the children, and hold on, go back. And we've gone to this spring over here. You can see she's filling, and they're using plastic. You can see this is what they're using now. Back in the old days, I asked them, what did you use before plastic? And they said clay pots and things that they would make. They also would use things like this. This is called a calabash. I don't know if you can see that, Scott. And it's made out of a gourd. And this is the Sanjo tribe, which we went to last. They grow these. So everyone's working hand in hand. Everyone works together. They grow this gourd. Okay, it's like a squash. And then they hollow it out. And so this is what they use to put their milk in, their water, and so forth. So these are the kinds of things back in the day before plastic came into the world. This is what they were using. And it's just, they gave this to me in the Maasai. And of course, I smell it every morning. And it smells like them. It's just, I just love them so. So it smells like their hut. It's very full of fire. And I'll talk about how they clean these. It's so beautiful. So that's how they would have cleaned. So look at her. She's able to balance this. I mean, it's the weight on it, just balance on her head. I was just in awe of what they can do, and the strength of their necks and their shoulders. It's throughout the tribes what they do. There's just a lot of walking. They do not sit. Everyone thinks that tribes sit all day. They are moving. The men walk at least, in the Hadzabe, we were doing at least 12 to 15 miles a day. At least. The women, they're always out walking to try to find food. They're always looking for something. They're always working. They have to build things. They have to collect water. They don't have water. They've got to go find it. So they're always moving. So at least 12 miles a day walking. And they say they think that's key to human health, let alone their food, but you've got humans to be walking. With me, they were fascinated by my hair, which there should be a picture coming up. My hair, because they've never seen it before. They usually shave their heads. And their hair is a different texture than ours. And they were just like, what is this? They were all touching it everywhere I would go. I've always had, I felt I could always feel hands touching my hair. And they're so soft in my skin. What is the skin? It's so different than ours. And your eyes are green, because their eyes are like brown and black. They were they couldn't believe this. My muscles, they've never seen a woman with muscles, because I bodybuild. And they were like, what is this? How did you do that? Why would you do that? They were fascinated by the whole thing. And Scott, you're in the same thing. they couldn't understand, and here they move, but they aren't into bodybuilding. They didn't feel there was a need to that. They're like, what is the purpose? How is that going to help you? And I said, well, because we don't walk like this. I said, this is how I'm able to work out, So it was a lot of talking. They had a lot of questions for me, just like I had a lot of questions for them. This is their home again. You can see it's the sticks and what they're using again to inside. Here we are inside the hut. You can see that it's just that they've got, logs and things that they use. The women usually do the building of the homes. And this is how their society is. And they are polygamous, so the men will have more than one wife, and usually each wife will have her own place. So if he's got 4 or 5 wives, he's got 4 or 5 different huts that he would go to, and they would have multiple children. And that's how they keep their DNA going. The Hadzabe, because they're not polygamous, that's why their numbers are down to about 800, because they only have one wife and just a few children. There's a difference. So you can see the mud-lined walls in here. They just sit on the floor, on the ground. They have a little fire pit on the inside of their home. The fire pit in the Hadzabe is outside. They do not put fire in their homes, in their huts. It's just outside. These guys have the pits inside. And so they do the cooking inside as well. It's very smoky, but this is how it is. And you can see here again, this tribe is incorporating a lot of ugali. Even though they eat meat, they're very much like the Maasai. Very much. They are milk, blood, meat, but now the ugali has come in, and they're using quite a bit of it. You can see they've got the ugali in the bowl. Oh, fiddlesticks. In the bowl. This is a bowl of milk. We felt when we tasted their milk, it tasted like it was boiled. We think that they're probably boiling their milk as well. It didn't taste raw to me. So they may be boiling it, and I'll tell you in a minute why. The government gets in everywhere. They're just trying to scare the living daylights out of these tribes now. And so they drink a lot of milk and butter. So you can see down here in my notes, it said they do 2 meals a day, and ugali in maize and water, milk and butter. So they'll take the maize, which is the ugali, which is the corn flour and water. They'll make it into a ball, and then they'll kind of they'll eat it, and then they'll drink their milk with it. And so or they'll have butter with it, and they'll make it with butter as well. And so their 2 meals per day is ugali. And then the men will drink 6 liters of milk per day. 6 liters.
Wow.
The women will drink 4 liters of milk per day.
A lot of milk.
A lot. And I was trying to, but that was a little bit much for me. Meat is consumed only once per week. They may consume up to 1 liter of butter per day. And they eat seasonally. They will consume honey when it's out, and they will consume some berries, but they said it's not that often.
It seems very ketogenic.
Very much so. Very much so. Here we are with the guys. And I did I spent most of my time usually with the men in the tribes, because my translators were men, and they really don't want men don't want to be with the women, and women don't want to be with the men. And so that, it just, because I was with men, that kind of kept me with the men, which is great because I learned so much from them. But I did spend in the Maasai, I spent a lot of time with the women. They were just phenomenal. But with these women too, the Toga were very open, you could see the women were with me a lot. Again, here's when I first arrived. This is Gish again. And it was interesting because he didn't want me to take pictures at first. So because I'm very athletic and I love to jump, so at home, I'm jumping over things all the time, because I think that's part of, like, when we're hunting and so forth, you would have to jump over logs. If you're chasing something, you'd have to jump. And so I was jumping over bushes, and they thought, first of all, to see a woman wearing pants, they thought, what is this? But to see a woman running, because most of the women don't run here. They do not run, they walk. I was running and jumping, and they were like, wait, what? And here they're jumpers. They do the same thing that the Maasai do, the high jumping that you see when they're dancing and so forth. They never thought of jumping bushes. And so they started doing, I've got a video I'm going to put out soon showing them jumping, not even bushes. They're jumping over these huge things. And it was so amazing. Well, it got Gish smiling. So I took a picture of him, and I said, Gish, look. And he'd never seen himself before. He's like, what? And so I said, jump, and I'll take a video. So I took a video of him and showed him, and he was just like, more. They wanted more. So that's how God intervened, because all of these things are just getting their wheels turning. They were fascinated. So then they were very willing to put things on video because they understood. We explained through translation that I was there to help to spread their wisdom to the world. I was there to learn from them.
Yeah.
I don't want them. Yeah, I want them to learn a little bit from me. But what do I said, I want to teach you what not to eat. Don't incorporate what we're doing. So I showed them pictures of what's happening to the people in our world. They were just shocked. They could not believe it. I said, don't let this happen to you.
Yeah.
So, interesting, with one of my videos that I did a live Instagram with their elders, their witch doctor or their medicine woman came, and it was a woman, not a man. She's over 100 years old. She's getting large. She was one of the large ones in the tribe. And her eyes were all cloudy and turning blue. And you could see she's got some kind of either glaucoma going on. A couple other tribe members also did as well. There are major eye problems going on in this tribe. But interestingly enough, the other Datoga tribe consumes a lot of beans, and kidney beans, which is one of the worst. If they aren't cooked thoroughly, kidney beans can kill you. And they said during one of the live chats, they said they do not eat beans because beans are eye damaging and beans will kill you. So I'm wondering if at one point they were consuming and they started seeing eye problems. But then the son, he was in his 80s, of the witch doctor, the medicine woman, he started talking when I said, have you seen any health changes? I said, well, how long have you been eating ugali? They knew exactly, 24 years. They knew it's been 24 years, and he was adamant. And a lot of the teens were all sitting around it, a whole crowd of them. And he's saying, it's the ugali. We have to stop. Since we've been eating ugali, it's killing us. It's causing disease. We have to go back to blood. It's replacing the blood, he said. And he goes, we got to have more blood, more milk, more meat. We've got to go back to what we used to do. And it was interesting. Every single tribe, every single elder said the same thing. Every single one.
Fascinating.
Yeah, very fascinating.
Suzanne, I think this is a good place to start wrapping up.
Oh, okay. All right. So we've, I'll just quickly, how many minutes we have? Oh my gosh. Real quickly, let's toggle through so you can see this was the Iraq tribe. They were very much, again, very similar to the Toga. This is the Maasai. Here we are with the Maasai. This is here we are with the Maasai. This is all their slaughter camps. We do all the slaughtering. This is the women. It's just so much. These are the elders. We got attacked by hyenas. This is the cows. I went to the inauguration of the new chief of all the Maasai in Kenya and in Tanzania. It's like the president. So he's become a very close friend of mine. And again, and then we went to the Sanjo at the end. And they were more plant-based, and we could see health issues among them as well. And again, this is what happened to me when I was there.
Oh, God.
I broke my arm as well when I was there.
Oh.
It was quite an event. And so this is, again, our book. This is where you can find us. You can find me on Instagram and so forth.
Wonderful.
And Facebook. But Scott, the bottom line is that we know that those who are eating more animal-based were extremely pristine. And once the plants and certain things started coming in, they started seeing that their health was failing.
The anti-nutrients.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So it was really profound with education. And Scott, I just appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. This is such important work, and love hearing the stories and seeing the pictures, and your experience is phenomenal. So thank you so much for doing this, Suzanne, and keep up the great work. And I'll always be happy to help share it through this platform.
Oh, Scott, thank you. And everyone, just stay tuned. We've got a lot more coming down the pike. So again, thanks for your time. You're a godsend. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the show. You can find The Scott Mize Show on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Please leave a comment, like, review, or share the podcast with your friends or followers. It helps more people find the show.